Nothing has been entered into the system, zero into the system, like zilch, nada, nothing. My heart just sank.
Welcome to CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Mabra. It's time to show up as a confident leader to create a practice and life you love.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of CEO Conversations. It's Brandy. Hello. I'm in person. Billing. Yeah, billing. First, I'm going to start off with a story. And for those of you who have been around for a while, then you'll know this story because it is the best story, especially for a lesson that has been learned. I've talked about this story on other podcasts, but I lost 6 figures of revenue because I did not have a conversation with my biller. I was too deep in the weeds, putting out all the fires. I was burned out. I was tired. I was exhausted. And I didn't think to ask what claims have gone through. I also didn't make the time to look at important reporting in order to tell me that things aren't getting put into the system. I just kind of went into la-la land, which can often happen. I know if maybe you're listening to this and you're in the weeds of your practice, there's probably things that you know you need to check on, probably some conversations that you need to have, but you're busy. Right? And so that was me for a long time until I got a wake-up call. And when I finally talked to the biller and they finally told me nothing has been entered into the system, zero into the system, like zilch, nada, nothing, my heart just sank. I mean, it sank. I cried. I was fearful. I was thankful. Because despite the way that P&L looked the following month, when you have no revenue, was old revenue coming in from claims that had been sent in prior, it was just a really expensive lesson to learn. So expensive. So after that, there was a race to get all the claims into the system ASAP. I was thankful because there was other revenue that was coming in. So, nothing got shut down. However, it just wasn't a good feeling, right? It wasn't a good feeling when I sat down with my providers and had to go through financials. It wasn't a good feeling for me because I was held accountable for financials, just all this stuff. And I don't want that to happen to you. There are horror stories that I get, and for people who come who, own your CEO status calls, which is the version of, do you want to be part of private practice CEO? So it's part of our application process. And the horror stories of how much money people have lost because of bad billing companies, because of bad billing hires. I have current clients who are going through, PTSD from a biller. Thousands and thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars have been lost. So today's episode is all dedicated to billing. I am a big stickler when it comes to monitoring your numbers, having sound processes surrounding your financials. I know that when it comes to the money piece, there's so many emotions that can come with it, so many emotions, and it makes sense, right? There's stories that we're telling ourselves about the money. Maybe you're listening to this. I'm going to challenge you. When was the last time you looked at your money? Do you know how much money is in your bank account? Do you know how much money is on its way to you? Do you know how much money is going out? All of those things. But there is processes and systems and reports that you can put into place to make sure that you're set up for success, right? So you need to have the data to go with the emotion. Sometimes we create stories about our money and create a whole soap opera episode about what's happening with our financials, and it's coming from a place of not having the data to make a decision or not knowing what to look at in order to make a decision. So I hope today's episode is helpful for you. Definitely, get ready to take some notes and get the pen out and everything else too, because there's going to be some homework that you're going to have to do, I'm sure. One of the questions that I always get is, what do I do at the beginning stages of business, right? So I'll talk through the different stages, different situations for when you need to either hire a biller or when you need to outsource billing or when you maybe should do your own billing. It's different for everybody. So depending on your specialty, then there's going to be, to be honest, a different answer. So let's start when day one, right? So if you were in your solo days and you're wondering what to do about billing, here are some options and what the number one best practice recommendation, and so that way you can have the right foundation, is if you don't know anything about billing, regardless of what your colleagues might say. I think a lot of times people take the subject of billing too lightly, and it's just like, oh, just go ahead and click this button right here or put this check mark right here and hit submit, and it's fine. There's money on the other side of it. And there's a lot of bad billing practices that are happening out in the world that will lead potentially to whatever payer coming in and taking their money, or you being in trouble for insurance fraud, right? So number one best practice is, if you don't know anything about billing, then you should take a class. There is a website, an amazing website called AAPC, which is the American Association of Professional Coders. And with that particular association, there are classes, there's consultants that do audits. We have inside of Private Practice CEO, that's one of the things, the number one recommendations. And we have clients who have had whole audits done on their billing where have been shown modifiers that are missing, codes that are missing, things that have not been documented that technically need to be documented, things that they're documenting that aren't being billed. And so it's important for you to have the resources that you need, then also to connect with people who know more about billing than you do, right? So there's two types of billing professionals. There's the biller, which is just a person who does data entry where they're entering codes, and that's it, right? So they're making sure that if you say it is XYZ code, then they're putting it into the system, or they're making sure that it's showing up on the claim inside of the system that you're working on for whatever EMR, EHR that's your system that you're using. And then there is a coder. A coder is a professional who can read over your documentation and pull out codes, right? Or they can read between the lines and give a diagnosis, a E&M code, make sure that all of the stuff that needs to be there, all the information that needs to be there is there. A biller is not the same thing as a coder. Now, you do have people who are coders and billers who can do both functions, which is the best of both worlds. But a biller cannot become a coder unless if they're certified, right? So these are certified positions. A biller, oftentimes, if they've been around the field for a long time, they're not necessarily certified. They could have been around the way, worked in a number of different practices, and they can call themselves a biller. Anybody can call themselves a biller. I could call myself a biller because I used to do billing, but I am not a certified biller. I do not carry that title. I am not a certified coder. I just know a lot, right? So I can spit off like, oh, that requires a modifier 25, and this is a 92014 or a 93086, like whatever it is. But I don't know. I can't read a documentation. I can't read over documentation and say, oh, you left this modifier out, or you should have included this diagnosis. That is not within my skill set. I can do a good data entry. And even at this point in time in my career, it's laughable. So I say that because you can have a very experienced biller who could still not know, I probably need to add this code, because they don't know, right? So at the beginning stages of your journey, you don't know what you don't know. So that's why I'm recommending for you to take a class and be savvy at it, understand it. Don't just rely on the EHR system, because at this point in time, especially with AI, there's so many tools that are available for you to just go ahead and submit it. But a lot of EHR systems aren't aware that maybe Aetna has unbundled a code, or that it's not necessarily going to tell you, hey, add this modifier, or hey, you could add this, at least not at this point in time, right? So knowing and recognizing, and even with AI, because the way AI is set up, is pulling so much information from the internet, it could give you the wrong information, right? So you have to make sure that you are learning from real experts who can tell you the right information, so you're not, again, putting yourself in a place of doing insurance fraud, which I know happens a lot in so many spaces. So do better. Once you have your class and you're comfortable, then cool, move forward if you want to go ahead and do your own billing. What's going to happen is, as your practice continues to grow and as your practice continues to make more money, you're going to work yourself out of a job. right? Which is good. So this is where now you've put yourself in a situation, if you haven't already, where you need to hire somebody. I will say for the folks who have more complex specialties, so if you have a lot of codes, a lot of E&M codes, a lot of different diagnoses, there's a lot that just happens, surgeries or office visits or procedures or testing, or, it's not just very simple type of billing, then you need a biller right off the bat, right? But I'm still going to recommend for you to take a class, so that way, again, you're going in knowing, and you can recognize something's off, something doesn't make sense, something's not right. You can tell when it comes to reimbursement. We'll talk about reporting and different things too, but that's the only time I would say is if you have a more complex specialty where you need to go ahead and start with a biller very much towards the beginning. So as your practice continues to get bigger and larger, and maybe you hire more providers, now you're putting yourself in a situation, do I need to outsource it? And I think when we're talking about time, the best use of your time is not necessarily being in the weeds trying to keep up with billing, but I don't want you to lose track of the money, because what I have seen, people have delegated it to billing companies, billers, and they have created hot mess situations because the biller isn't set up for success. So if you are going to outsource it and it is a true time drainer and you're spending, like the times that I'm recommending it is like if I have clients, because I have seven-figure clients, close to seven-figure clients, I'm not even going to lie, who were still doing some of their own billing, but they're up till like 3 o'clock in the morning doing their billing. I'm doing my billing all day on a Saturday, or I'm waking up early in order to do billing. Please get it off your plate. Or I can't go out and market, or I can't go out and have like the right conversations, or I can't go out and talk to people that are going to allow for me to move the practice forward, or I can't really focus on the money generating activities or the vision or thinking time because I'm doing billing. You need to delegate it. You need to get it off of your plate, because that at that point in time is costing you money. But with that, you have to be responsible. So one of the things I always say is talk to 3 to 5 vendors. So before you delegate it, talk to 3 and 5 vendors, because there's 2 types. There are billing companies. And when you talk to billing companies, talk to 3 or 5. Also, you want to make sure that you're talking to the references, like they need to provide 3 to 5 references that you can talk to, so that way you can get a good feel for how are they doing, how are they performing. Because when you hire, I'll start first with the billing company. They are the experts. They need to be the experts. But if they are relying on you, the provider, then there's a mistake. So I remember this was, at this point in time, it was like a few years ago. There was a client I was working with, and I was meeting with her and her billing company, and they were relying on her, who, billing practices, right? They're the billing experts, but they were putting her in the expert seat in order to make sure that they were able to do their job. That's backwards, right? So they should be telling you, they need to be telling you what is best practice, bringing you updates. Hey, Blue Cross Blue Shield has changed this, or they should have coders on their team that you can utilize, going back to being able to do an audit. They should be bringing you processes and procedures. This is better if you do it this way, or here's a policy and procedure you can implement inside of your practice. If they're not bringing that type of expertise, then something's wrong, right? That's a red flag. If they're only looking to you and what you do currently, and they're just trying to replicate it, that means that they're not necessarily bringing any value add to your practice, and that's a red flag. So many red flags. And when I will say, like during the pandemic, there was a lot of billing companies that jumped up, that popped up. And this was one of the billing companies. They just randomly started, doing billing, and you could tell. So it's a running joke now between me and my client, because I kind of told them off and, asked them all these questions coming from a seat of knowledge. And all of a sudden she was getting a call from like the CEO of the company, and, like she got money back and like all this stuff, because it was a setup, right? So it's important for you to come from a place of knowledge. You want to talk to 3 to 5 references. They should be bringing you information. You should let them know more. Like you can let them know about like your specialty, clinical information, some of what your processes and procedures are now, but it shouldn't just be you know what they're doing. The other thing with the billing company is getting very clear who is doing your billing, because there are companies who send over their billing to overseas, and sometimes there is things that get missed. Sometimes the experience changes. So you just want to know who's working on my stuff, right? So yes, you're partnering with this company, but who's really the biller who is actually doing the work? So that way you know. The other piece of this is recognizing they're hiring a team just like you. I've had clients who work with the exact same billing company and who have two completely different experiences because of the biller that they've been assigned. So if you don't like your biller that you've been assigned, ask for a new one. Right? So again, this is your money. So you have to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. The other piece of it is if you're going to hire a biller, same thing, same rules apply, right? You're just not looking at a resume. You still want to check 3 to 5 references. So that way you can see if they have that type of experience. You want to get a very good feel for what the knowledge base is. And you want to make sure that you're talking to at least 3 to 5 people in your interview process, right? So don't just talk to one biller and hire them off of the jump. Interview them, ask questions, see what they bring, look at their certifications. Have they been a billing manager maybe in their past life? So just really getting a good feel for the expertise that either a billing company or a biller is bringing to the table. Once it's outsourced or once it's with somebody, or even if you're the one who's still doing the billing, I'm going to give you some best practices to make sure that you have the awareness of what's happening with the money and you're not just aloof to things, right? So you can stay on top of it, exactly the financial health of holistically of what's happening once the billing is out of your hands and just in general too. So these are just best practices. So the first thing is the month-end process. So during the course of the month, and what I always say is that your money should be happening and being entered inside of your system every single day, whenever possible. So if you're doing your own billing, you should be doing billing every single day. If you are outsourcing, you should ask, I want to make sure that my billing is happening every single day, because they will put you on a weekly cadence, maybe every 3-day cadence. And you want to make sure that those claims are going in every single day. If there's any money that's being sent or transferred over, that money is getting keyed into the system. Like all of these things are best practices. And so when you aren't seeing the money moving every day, especially if you're seeing clients and patients every day, you should be having money come into your practice every day, right? Or you should be putting processes in place where the money can come in faster. Part of the reason why you want an everyday cadence is in order to make sure your cash flow is on point. If your cash flow isn't on point, it's usually because maybe you're not billing the way that you need to bill, or, you're putting yourself in a position of the payer might be a slower payer to pay, the patient is a slower patient to pay. But best practice is actually for the billing cycle from the time that you see the patient to the time that the claim is paid or the time that the patient takes care of the invoice is all within 30 days. If your AR or your accounts receivable is past 30 days, then that could be a red flag of an inefficiency that's happening within your billing processes. If you are going towards 60, 90, 120 days for your AR, accounts receivable, something is very wrong with your billing, right? So you need to stop immediately and either have a conversation with your biller or have a conversation with yourself or have a conversation with your outsourced biller. When we're thinking about the month-end process, what it does is it makes sure that all the claims that can be entered into the system are entered into the system before the end of the month. This does not mean that you are now going ahead and sending all the claims through the 29th of the month or the 28th of the month. No, this means that you are actively throughout the 30 days or whatever 21, 22 working days, you are actively putting those claims into the system, right? So at the end of the month, so either on the 30th or the 31st at 11:59 p.m., everything is entered into the system that it can be. Any kind of claims edits, so if there's any kind of corrections that needed to be done, anything that didn't go through the scrubber, anything that maybe came back to you, all of those things are being entered into the system before the end of the month. So that way, when you look at your P&L, your profit and loss statement, or when you go into the next month, you have a good understanding of what your financial picture is. When you start to look at these things on a monthly cadence,
It allows for you to see if there's anything that's not working, any money that's supposed to get into the system isn't in the system. And it allows for you to, again, know what money's due to come in. So even like going into the next 60 days, if you know there's $13,000 that we billed for last month, or $100,000 that we billed for last month, or $150,000 that we billed for last month, and that's due to come in. And when I say build, I mean money that's actively going to come in. Sometimes what you will bill, just depending, you could bill $300,000 a month. Doesn't necessarily mean that the insurance company is going to pay you $300,000. Whatever that is for your fee schedule, you can now expect, oh, I can make decisions with this, right? Because I know in the next 30 days, we're going to get some of that money coming in, or all of that money coming in, depending, again, how fast you enter your claims. So it's important for you to understand the cadences, but the month-end process is a great way to hold everyone accountable. And there are several reports that need to be definitely looked at during the course of your month, but also at month end. So your month ends would be how much money was entered into the system, right? So this would be claims. How many claims got billed into the system? Another one would be any denials that happened during the course of the month. Were those denials fixed and sent back through? They should be. If you have a really high denial rate, that's a red flag. Something's wrong. If your biller isn't productive and you think like, when I was doing my billing, I was able to send 300 claims through. This person's only sending 150 claims through. Something's wrong, right? So some of these things are productivity reports, your account aging reports, or your accounts receivable. Another report that your system might call it might be like patient aging reports. Anything that's talking about how long has this money been sitting here or being billed and unpaid, you need to be looking at those reports on a continual basis. It's like inside a private practice CEO, our clients get a whole list of reports that they need to look at on a monthly basis or work with their biller to make sure that they're getting on a monthly basis and sometimes weekly basis. So that way they know exactly what is happening with their financials. So those are like the main key reports that I would say. So accounts receivable, so patient aging, your denial report, how much money has been billed for, how much money has been received, right, for the month, how many claims have been keyed for the month, so that way you know if you have a productive biller or a productive billing company, how much money has been collected either from outstanding balances, co-pays, deductibles, like all of those things is some of the top ones that I would say that you could look at. If you want the whole list, will be more than happy to give you the whole list, but you can email info at savvyclover.com and put in the subject line billing list, and I'll send it to you. Because I want to make sure that you're set up for success. So the reports are important. You need to make sure that you're meeting with your biller on a normal cadence. So either on a monthly, in the beginning stages, when you're getting to know your biller, it should be weekly, right? Like monthly, or if you aren't confident in your biller, or just best practice would be, definitely on a weekly basis. The least would be on a monthly basis. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're having active conversations about your billing. Like, how are things going? What is the updates? What are the statuses? If you notice with your accounts receivable, right, so your aging report, if the money's still staying the same, nothing's moving, that's a conversation that you need to have in order for you to make sure that all the money's coming in the door that is available to you, right? So the meeting cadence is important, making sure that your policies and processes and systems are documented. So one of the things that I see, the biggest mistake that I see is like on denial reports. You'll say like, oh, the subscriber ID is missing, or the date of birth is wrong, or the product name, or whatever denials, like why the claims are not going through. Something's happening on the payer side. And so all of those, that's information for you. So all of those reasons are telling you that I need to go back and rework the processes and systems that we have in place because either my front desk person isn't doing something right, or the team isn't entering something right, or the biller isn't entering something right, and you need to fix the process, right? So it's not just about what people do is they fix the mistake instead of looking at the overall process for why did this happen and what's the root cause, so that way you can fix the actual root cause. So you want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success when it comes to the billing process holistically, and not just fix the symptom, but you want to cure the disease, right? So just to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. The second thing is looking at like your P&L. One of the questions I always get is my P&L doesn't always match what's in my EHR system. It's not going to match. This is why making sure everything can happen is within the 30 days is helpful. But if there's a glaring difference between what's on your P&L for revenue that's been received and then what's showing in your EMR system for the revenue that's been received, and it's like apples and oranges, that's telling you there's inefficiency in your billing system, right? In your billing processes and workflows. So making sure that you understand what's on your P&L. Why is that revenue? Because that's what's in the bank. That's everything that's hid in the bank. Also reconciling between checks, because sometimes checks, that's why making sure that the checks are logged into your EHR system, because as they're hitting your bank account, you can reconcile between the two to make sure, again, that all of the money that's being sent over or transferred over is actually hitting your bank account. If there's no reconciliation, then there are times where you can miss checks, you can miss patient payments where, so if you're getting complaints like I made this payment or the insurance paid, or, I got this bill, then that's a sign of inefficiency. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to the smaller details when it comes to the revenue cycle as well. Yeah, so for the month end process from start to finish, what it would look like is you want to start month end like a week prior, before the end of the month. If you are trying to do like a whole month end process at the end of the month, you're going to be stressed. And so for you to start at least a week prior, hopefully you have a good understanding of your billing cycle. You're being proactive when it comes to it. But when you get to that week prior, you're now starting to pull reports. You're now starting to look at denials. You're now starting to look at what claims have been sent over. You're now starting to look at how much money have we collected? Are there invoices that are being paid? Do we need to send out our statements? Do we need to send some additional text messages? Do we need to send emails? Do we need to send paper statements? You're looking at all of that to make sure that things are actually moving. Are there any claims that are stuck in the scrubber? Is there any money that's been checks that have come in that maybe we haven't logged? Hopefully everybody has as many checks being processed as EFTs or electronic fund transfers. If not, then if you need to set up like a lockbox with your bank, you can do that. So a lockbox is where paper checks come to the bank, and then the bank is able to make sure that they end up in your checking account, and then they're able to send you a copy of that check, so that way you can go ahead and log it into your system. So that's an additional way, because I know sometimes payers are like mom and pop type payers. They don't necessarily have the sophistication. So if you want to take it out of your practice's hands completely and just put it with the bank, because that's where the check's going to go anyway, then that's something that you can do. So you can just talk to your bank about a lockbox and setting that up, so that way your checks can just be sent there, and that's where you would log with the payer to make sure that those checks end up there. That's a side note, but you're still looking at all of that information just to make sure, again, that you're prepared to go ahead on the end of the month, that everything that needs to be entered into the system has been entered into the system. All the reports that you need are available. The billing company is either sending you those reports where you're on top of it, or you're sitting down with the biller to talk about, like, are we ready for month end? Another thing, to go back to the first question, when you're trying to make sure that you're setting yourself up with like a good biller, is asking them what their month end process is. Like, how do they work with their clients when it comes to a month end process? So that way you're on the same page. When you go into the next month, so around the 5th of the month, then you should have a good understanding of what the prior month's performance is going to look like, right? So you're now pulling like the post reports to see how many claims have got put into the system, what money has come in. So that way it's a good representation. Your P&L should be ready. If you're working with an accountant should have your P&L ready for you to either look at, or they should be sending it to you, or you should be going in, because I know some folks, for those who might not have an accountant yet, and maybe doing things inside of like QuickBooks or something yourself, then you should be going into QuickBooks to look at your P&L. So that's really the big things when it comes to a biller. Again, if you want the list of reports, then I'll be more than happy to send them to you, just to make sure that you're set up for success. So again, you can email me at info@savvyclover.com. If you need some additional support and you want more tools, let me tell you, you want to hang out with me between May 12th and May 16th. So that's 5 days where I'm doing a series called the Private Practice CEO Lunch and Learn series, where you'll get coached. If you get a VIP ticket, I'm going to tell you to get the VIP ticket, because if you are in a place where you're struggling with your practice, you need more tools, you need some additional insights for the operations flow of your practice, you have hired in your practice and need to be empowered when you're leading your team, making sure you're getting some things off of your plate. So if you are honestly wanting more freedom in your practice to have more time, make more money, definitely get out of the weeds of your practice, then the Lunch and Learn series is the best way to go. Also, go run and get this ticket, because I'm not 110% sure I will ever do anything like this again. So it's a great way to work with me. It's a great way to get some additional insight when it comes to your practice. It is 10 hours if you do the VIP. I'm just telling you. And so it's going to be a really great experience. I'm looking forward for those who have already bought their ticket to be able to hang out with you for the week. And if you're in a place of struggling, you don't need to struggle in silence. So, go see the link in the show notes, so that way you can get your VIP ticket today, so that way you can get coached and mentored, get some additional tools in order to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. So some of the topics that we're going to be talking about is high performance team. We're going to be talking about money. I'll answer any questions that you have. We're going to be talking about you as a CEO. We're going to dive into some conversations about AI. So it's going to be a really great week. I'm super excited about it. So go ahead and get your ticket today. All right, so I will see you guys next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and it empowers you as the CEO of your practice. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you subscribe, share the message, and leave a review. If you want more information and support in growing and scaling your practice, click the link in the show notes to take advantage of our free resources or apply to work with me directly. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.